to the families that are mourning. It's indeed a difficult time for the country. Redemptor, the issue of terrorism is usually very emotional, and I can tell you, Nelson Mandela was a terrorist in American books up to 1993. And that's the reason why in Kenya we sought to align the Prevention of Terrorism Act to international standards so that we have something uniform. And unfortunately, that is being abused. Chairman Manwa, I would want you to help us briefly to respond to, because Redemptor's views were mostly comments. Wanjiru has asked 3 questions. I don't know if you could help us with those 3 questions. Then we take one more and we call it a day. I'm sure we are going to have another session.
Chair, thank you. I don't know whether you can reiterate those questions, perhaps, so that we are able to respond quickly.
The first question by Redemptor was basically the lack of awareness on the rights of arrest. People are arrested, incarcerated, they don't know what to do. The second one, the threshold in the Terrorism Act. How do you distinguish terrorism from crime in the other act, like the penal code? And then the last question is the implications. People are arrested and charged for terrorism. This may have serious consequences in terms of their history. If they seek to travel outside the country, that might raise concerns in the future. Over to you, Chairman.
Thank you so much, Dr. for those concerns. And I think these are fundamental questions, particularly, and I'll start with the last one. The implication of travel outside the country, especially when you have been charged with a crime under the TOPA Act. It's important that we establish why the Director of Public Prosecution, and I think concerns have been raised as to why the DPP deliberately decided to actually allow or approve, because that's a constitutional requirement given to the Director of Public Prosecution to approve charges. And the threshold created under the Constitution, and the reason why we allowed the DPP to perhaps have that mandate, is to scrutinize the evidence that is given and perhaps inform himself or herself as to whether the threshold has been created that if they institute the proceedings, a conviction will be issued. Based on that background, that led to, of course, the Constitution of Kenya 2010 being enacted to give the DPP such powers. The problem is that these charges, as presented, and I think it's important for the members of the public to appreciate that the implications under POTA are far-reaching from the time of being charged. And that's why we are monitoring the charge sheets, because at the end of the day, young people will be presented as a single section within the one of the court stations. Almost 86 people were charged under the offences under POTA. The implication internationally is huge, and remember, the international community will not care as to whether these were charges presented for purposes of stopping a political process, or for purpose of course, and ensuring that young people do not go to the streets. But again, the risk and the fear that is created internationally is that you will not be allowed to another country just because you have been charged, not even found guilty or convicted of the offences charged. And constitutional and criminal practitioners will tell you that 90 or 99% of these charges will be dropped at some point. There will not be convictions. It will be foolhardy of us to assume that the DPP does not know that. So the intention from where we sit is that this is supposed to intimidate and scare people from exercising their rights. But at the same time, if someone was guilty of an offense under the penal code, the risks being charged under the POTA Act are huge than the risks being charged under the Penal Code. And so, over time, and perhaps as we participate through this process, we'll be able to establish that process. And I want to give Wanjiru some confidence that at some point, because we are monitoring these cases as a Law Society, we have a mandate under Section 4 of the Law Society of Kenya Act, a statutory mandate to participate in these processes and guide courts as to the implication of such charges. I know most of them will be challenged before the High Court in terms of ensuring that those charges do not see the light of the day, and so that the records of these individuals in terms of their integrity, and considering that they did not participate in any terrorism activity in the strict definition of the provisions under the Terrorism Prevention of Terrorism Act, were not met. To the first question, lack of awareness, I think it's important. Most of the members of the public here check out on the Law Society of Kenya website, and of course our social media pages. We have done public awareness reviews. We are actually doing this space for purposes of ensuring that the public is aware of the implications of charges under the POTA Act. At the same time, on the implications of the recent charges as presented under the as or perceived as terrorism going forward, and they ought to know that these are serious offenses. And whereas we are participating on the periphery, they need to instruct proper advocates to ensure that they actually help the courts in ensuring that these charges do not see the light of the day. We have no problem the DPP charging individuals under the penal code, and I mentioned earlier the offense under arson, especially on properties belonging to government that has been burned down. We have offenses on robbery with violence of individuals who have been found, and evidence has been recorded to have actually committed robbery. We have offenses on assault. We have offenses on. We have all manner of offenses under the penal code. We will not have a problem as the Law Society of Kenya if charges are preferred on individuals who have been found and who the the director of prosecution has actually established that there's evidence to that effect being charged under the penal code. The problem we have is the misuse of the terrorism, the POTA Act, because it has far-reaching implications to not only the entire populace or to members of the public, but also to individuals in terms of travel, in terms of employment, because in Kenya, employers also check on your records in terms of the charges you've actually been charged with. And even if you are acquitted, they'll be as skeptical as possible to ensure that they don't employ you until, of course, they are on the clear as to the fact that you did not participate in that process. In terms of the third question that was raised on the threshold in the Terrorism Act, I think the threshold is too high, and this is because this act was enacted because of necessity. And without reiterating what Tali, what Irungu, and what Abner have spoken in terms of the threshold, if you check the definition given under the POTA Act, you will notice that the threshold is too high. Too high to the extent that you cannot just allege that someone committed a terrorism act. It presents different dimensions in terms of the threshold. And I'm happy that I'm not happy, but I'm happy that the courts will have an opportunity to interpret the provisions under the POTA Act and perhaps give directions as to what is the threshold beyond the statutory provisions that have been set out under the Act, so that it is clear to both the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature that this is the threshold as presented through precedent. And I think, Dr. Evans, you will agree with me that we have not had a situation where, in the previous years, where civilians who participate in demonstrations have been subjected to the POTA Act in terms of the crimes.
Mhm.
This is the first time, and I think we will have an opportunity through the judicial process and perhaps the High Court, the Constitutional Court will be able to interpret and perhaps interpret the definition of what constitutes a terrorism act. That will and of course that is why the Law Society of Kenya is actually participating in the process of monitoring all the charges in that touch on the POTA. And of course, as we go forward, we'll be able to have more spaces that will be able to highlight and enlighten the public as to what the court has pronounced itself, as to what the court has given in terms of definitions, or any other new precedent that has been created as a result of these ongoing charges. But again, as the Law Society, we will not relent to challenge the Director of Public Prosecutions to do the right thing. It is concerning to all of us that the Constitution, and this matters before the Court of Appeal, as to who is supposed to draw a charge sheet. The purpose of the National Police Service is to the Inspector General and the people concerned with the investigation is to present evidence through investigation to the DPP. Once the DPP receives this information, they have to review the evidence presented as investigated by their colleagues who have presented this evidence and now inform themselves. You have seen instances where the DPP has refused to prefer charges against certain cases that have been presented before before the DPP for good reason, because the threshold has not been created. The drafters of the Constitution foresaw a situation where, remember, before the 2010 Constitution,
Yes.
the DPP had huge powers, including nolle prosecute at any stage. The DPP would issue a nolle prosecute at any stage.
Mhm.
And there was too much political interference. There is a specific reason why the responsibility was given to the DPP to review the evidence and prefer charges. They have to take responsibility for these charges preferred. They have to demonstrate that they had capacity. But again, there are red flags as to why the individual director of public prosecution who's approving these charges failed to mention their individual names.
Mhm.
Because you have a professional responsibility, you're a public officer, you have to state that this is the reason why I chose to prefer this, approve these charges.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Evans. I think I'm speaking too much. I hope I've answered the three concerns.
No,
Thank you.
thank you very much. I am aware.
Evans,
1-0, hold on. 1-0. We 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 are out of time. We have overshot our time by I think 14 minutes. I am very sure that we have burning questions, we have burning concerns. I will beg with you to forgive us for today. We are going to have a sequel. We are going to have a follow-up to this, that I am assuring you. So for today, this was just but a teaser, the first of many. I want to give a few minutes, actually it's a minute each, to each of our panelists before we ask the president of the Law Society to give her closing remarks, and then we will call it to an end. So in terms of order, we will start with Mr. Tali Israel, Abner Mango, Manua Hosea, our co-host, my friend Irongo Houghton, and then we finally go to the president. Then we call it quits for today. So, Tali Israel, your closing remarks in a minute. You can unmute yourself. Abner, can you hear me? Abner? Irongo, can you hear me? What's happening? Manwa?
We can hear you. I think they are all muted. If you can ask that they unmute themselves.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. You had muted us, huh?
Okay, sorry. Tali, let's proceed.
I would be very brief, and I would start by saying that as a country, we need to know, and as a Gen Z myself, I start by a meme on TikTok that usually says, tough times never last. Only tough people do. As a country and as our generation, this is among our tough times. They will never last. Those who came before us lasted through tougher times. I think the resilience needs to remain. Secondly, and most importantly, would be a call to our institutions. The Director of Public Prosecutions is a key and central institution. I urge its independence of that institutions. Our judiciary, our last port of call. I urge our judicial officers to remain true to their oath. Our civil society, clapping for you. Let us continue on that path. Let us continue advocating and fighting for the proper implementation of the rights that we gave to ourselves. Indeed, these tough times will never last. We will last as a country. Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you to the audience for listening to me, and have a blessed weekend.
Thank you very much. Tough times never last. Abner Mango. Abner? Is Abner here? Let me just see. Abner seems to... Abner, are you able to speak now?
He has requested for the mic. If you can give him the mic, I think he has tried to join back.
I have tried to approve him. He's here.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. You can hear me?
Yes, we can. Abner, proceed.
Yes. Thank you so much for having you, and thank you to LSK and Madam President for having this session. I can indeed confirm that over the last 2 weeks, personally, and I know as a society, we have received a lot of call to help. We have received a lot of questions. We have seen a lot of anxiety and panic, and this has been caused by the recent actions by the state and the DPP to proceed in the manner which they are proceeding. We, however, call upon all of us to remain steadfast, to remain confident, to remain vigilant, and to continue pushing on. For us, all we are advocating for is for the rule of law and constitutionalism, and we want to encourage and comfort all those families who perhaps have their kin, their loved ones still behind bars, that we shall do all that is within our means, within the confines of the law, to secure at least the release on bail and bond, and even further to that, to see those trials to the logical conclusion. So, Ogada, as you've promised, I'm part of those who are eager to have more sessions. But for tonight, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Abner. Thank you very much. Chairman Manwa.
Thank you so much, Dr. Evans Ogada, for this session. And I think I want to thank the President for heeding to the demand. Remember, we are holding this session because most of the members of the public requested that we do so. As I indicated earlier, Dr. we have a statutory mandate as a law society to ensure that we do this public discourse to perhaps set the record straight. And we understand that the members of the public have a huge expectation on us to do what we are supposed to do under statute. We have put up a toll number in our Law Society page, and we have received so many concerns, and we continue to receive so many concerns. We have acted on a majority of those concerns, and I think most of the panelists here are aware that we have at least tried to meet that mandate as the Law Society. I ask the members of the public to not to hesitate, but to channel those concerns, continue to channel those concerns that are human rights related. We will be able to be available and participate. We have advocates, our members across the country, in every police station, in every court station across the country, who will be able to assist in the process, especially if you are vulnerable, you are not able to afford an advocate, you're not able to defend for your rights, and you think your rights are being violated. As a Law Society and as a convener of the Public Interest Litigation Committee, we are actually determined to ensure that we represent those people we think their rights under the Constitution are being violated. We also ask our counterparts at the Director of Public Prosecution to stick to the oath of office. Ensure that you do not allow frivolous or vexatious charges against any member of the public. Because at the end of the day, the role that you are actually serving today, tomorrow you might be a victim. It has been so from time to time. Today you are in the office, tomorrow you'll be the victim. So ensure that while you're in the office, you do what is right. Ensure that you defend the members of the public to the best of your knowledge. Ensure that no individual, and I think Dr. will agree with me that majority of the victims of these processes are paupers, are poor people's children, who are actually being subjected through a judicial process which they do not understand. As a Law Society, we relate to those cries. We have a duty. We have no capacity to fight the government of the day, but we have capacity under statute to defend the members of the public to the ends of the day, and to ensure that at least they get justice in our courts. To the judicial officers, and I think Tali has spoken to this, you are equally human beings, and I think today we had a judge indicate that I'm a human being. If we appreciate and agree that we are all human beings, then we have to ensure that we judge people according to that human nature. Let's not take a Pharaoh position. Let's not actually be the conduits as judicial officers to undermine the Bill of Rights. Let us be human beings and ensure that the charges presented before you, if they are erroneous, if they are politically instigated, let us decline to proceed with those charges. To the executive, there is nobody who's fighting the government of the day. The members of the public are raising concerns. The most important thing any government in the world should do is to listen to its people and perhaps give proposals as to how they can remedy the situation of its people. And I think once we have that in place, we'll be able to have a proper society. Thank you so much, Madam President. Thank you so much, Dr. Evans Ogada. Thank you so much, Irungu. Thank you so much, Abna and Tali, for participating in this process. I think the entire process falls under the Public Interest Litigation Committee, which I convene. We have seen a lot in terms of human rights abuses. We hope that in the fullness of time, we will be able to have a society that is understanding, where we can speak to each other as human beings. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Manwa. Over to you, President Irungu Heaton.
Thank you very much, Evans, and just want to close by just thanking the Law Society, the Platform Magazine, and of course Amnesty for convening this conversation. It is a timely conversation, it is a necessary conversation, and particularly given the comments that we've heard from people, it is one that I think we should have a sequel, as you've said. To those of you, the 500 or 50 or so that are on this call, wherever you are in the Republic and abroad, to the Social Justice Center leaders, I see you, to the members of the media and the correspondents and lawyers and all the active citizens on this group, just thank you for joining us, publicly or anonymously as well this evening. I particularly wanted to point out somebody who I think has been tremendously courageous and has faced much of the terrorism, culture, or the weaponization of terrorism against the call for democracy and the call for human rights and good governance, and that is the president of the Ugandan Law Society, who's with us, Isaac Semekade, who has joined us and has been sitting into this conversation. Courage, comrade. We are also going through similar times like you, but we continue to hold our constitution at the forefront of our work. I think I wanted to touch on this issue of people who have been charged with terrorism charges and whether they will be able to get a job or whether they will be able to travel abroad and so on. And just to say that it is the convictions that usually tend to be the most dangerous, obstacles for people applying for jobs and so on. And sadly, if this generation of young people must walk around with rulings that exonerate them, or judgments that exonerate them as they apply for jobs or as they apply for visas, then perhaps that is the price that some will pay for a new and democratic country. But I think the other point that is important to note is that the misuse of POTA could trigger a review of Kenya's relationship with a number of partners, foreign development partners that have been funding, have been working in collaboration with our counterterrorism agencies. Last year, something like about $380 million was the contribution that foreign countries were making to our counterterrorism efforts. And I think if the Prevention of Terrorism Act and all the architecture is now going to be weaponized against peaceful protesters or even people who have been accused of arson, then I think there is a bigger challenge for the country in terms of national security as well. Lastly, I just want to say that our hearts and minds must remain with all the victims, the 43 victims at least, of the violence that took place at Sabasaba. Yes, we can be concerned about property and about the attacks on judiciary and the attacks on the police, but I think we have to say it's not just Bridget and Jockey that our hearts are crying for at this time. It is the entire generation that seems to be condemned, to this kind of violence. So for those of us who will continue to provide legal assistance, more courage to you. For those of us that will go to the courts and be trial observers, more courage to you. It is important that the light continues to be seen in Kahawa court, law court, and I think with courage, solidarity, and a calm resolve, we too shall pass through this period a stronger country and a more unified country. We often forget that even acts of terrorism produce solidarity. If we remember the solidarity or the courage that came, the compassion that came from those informal kiosk owners who brought food for our security officers or our paramedics at Westgate, or the bravery of Abdul Haji, or the Imam Salah Farah, who stood up in a bus that had been stopped by terrorists and said, "You will have to kill all of us, or you have to leave us alone." He was a Muslim, wasn't being targeted. They were looking for Christians, and he took a bullet rather than betray the Christians that were on that bus that day. That story is in a short movie which people have not watched called Watu Wote, is worth watching. It's the incident of 2015. So I think we have to say that through this also we will see greater courage, greater solidarity, and greater unity as a country. Thank you very much, Evans, for moderating us so well.
Thank you very much, President Hito Nirongo. Always a pleasure, my elder brother. Madam President, over to you for the final remarks.
I want to say thank you to Irungu Houghton, to Manuel Ser, to Abner Mango, to Tali Israel, amongst all the other speakers, and of course to yourself, Evans Okada, for being present and sharing. The aim of this is not only to educate our youth, and particularly the bigger worry that we have about radicalization of the youth, and also to understand what the law provides, how to protect yourself, and also the kind of challenge that we'll be facing. But I'm always encouraged that in greatest adversity, there's always hope, and there's always inspiration, particularly from the youth. And I want to say that the reality is we are facing challenging times. However, even amidst the challenge, the courts are never silent, and we'll keep reminding them to hold them true and account to the role that they must play as the last bulwark of the society. Um, I express my heartfelt condolences to all those who were killed during the Saba Saba protests, during the Gen Z memorial protest against the killing of the young lady who was raped and killed at her home, protests on the killing of Albert Ojwang, amongst others, that we continue to raise hue and cry. And we continue to see the great humanity and in the people, even families like for Boniface Karaoke. The first call to action for the family was to ask the National Police Service to ensure that they restrain themselves because they didn't want to see another family suffer the same fate. And it behoves us to call for accountability, but also to protect ourselves, to be vigilant, to ensure that we exercise our rights within the law to prevent unfortunate events from happening. And it calls upon each and every one of us to remember that if we're not vigilant, if we don't hold others accountable, today you may think you're safe, tomorrow it'll be you. And so we are responsible for one another, we're responsible for this nation, we're responsible for this country. That we ensure that we protect our nation, we protect our country, but also we hold the various institutions accountable. It's because of this accountability that we see the growth, we see democracy thrive, and we protect even the hard fought democratic principles that those who came before us have fought time and time immemorial for us to enjoy the freedom of expression, of assembly, and so many other rights we enjoy in today's Bill of Rights. And so the encouragement is others have gone through it, we are going through it, but we want to come out stronger and better as a nation, as a country, as one loving people of Kenya. My resounding call is let us not allow ourselves to be divided on tribal lines. Let us not allow ourselves to be divided on lines. Remember that we are one nation, we are one people, and we owe it upon ourselves to see the growth and betterment of this country. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam President, for your remarks. The 500 plus individuals who have been with us over the last hour, thank you very much. Special mention to my brother, colleague from Uganda, President Isaac Semakande. Thank you very much, comrade. It's good to see you around here. Tony Gashoka, this is a name that we Kenyans know. Thank you very much, Mr. Gashoka. We appreciate your stellar contribution to what we have in Kenya today. I saw Shakira and leaders of the various social justice movements. Thank you very much, colleagues and comrades on the streets. We appreciate what you're doing. Thank you to the platform led by our chair, Gitobui Manyara. Thank you, President LSK and the LSK fraternity. Thank you. Amnesty International, led by President Irongo Houghton, for having hosted us today. The parting shot and the parting words to the ODPP, the magistrate and judges, those of you who are in power today, the words of Martin Niemöller, that German priest. First, they came for the socialists. I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists. I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me. There was no one left to speak for me. Tomorrow it shall be you who shall speak for you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. See you on this next space event.